Welcome today to this session. I'm very excited to be hosting a panel with these three fantastic people. My name is Dr. Stacey Ludwig Johnson, and I'm the Senior Vice President and Executive Dean at the School of Education for Western Governors University. And today, we're going to have a discussion about prioritizing well-being for educators and leaders in our schools, like one of the most important topics facing our nation today. So I'm going to introduce first the panel members, and then we're just going to jump right to it. So to begin with, Dr. Mamie Pack. You've been 20 years supporting educators and building safe spaces for students and faculty, and is a manager of healthy learning at Western Governors University. So I just want to say welcome and thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Stacey.
All right. And then I'm going to jump down here to Milton, down there on the end. Milton is Milton Collins. He's the principal of Lincoln Elementary School in Salt Lake City, Utah. We've had an opportunity to connect with Milton a couple different times, and he's just having tremendous success in his school with students' academic success and teacher happiness and thriving and retention. He credits his leading from the heart for his success, and in this episode, he's going to share his passion for the profession as a principal, who is caring for teachers so that teachers can care for their students. So excited to have you here, Milton.
Thank you, Stacey.
And then Troy and I had an opportunity to connect earlier this week as well. Maybe it was last week. All the weeks flow together.
That's right.
Last week. Troy Wilson is the principal of Great Oaks Charter School in New York City. He is a graduate of Western Governors University and has served in leadership roles with New York City Department of Education and a nonprofit community organization, Phipps Neighborhoods.
That's right.
So I'm very excited to have you here today as well.
Here.
So just to set the context a little bit, when we talk about educator preparation, educator preparation, I should say well-being, most importantly for today's topic, is something that everybody should be concerned about. Many times when we're talking about teacher shortages, and when you think about over the years, we often hear about teacher shortages, and now if you listen closely, during the end of the summer as we're starting into a new academic year, you're hearing more and more about educator well-being, and that topic has really kind of come onto the landscape since the pandemic, and there's no stopping it. Like, teacher shortages and educator well-being go hand in hand, and for many of us, if I look at this through the lens of educator preparation programs, there is sort of this fallacy in terms of solving for teacher shortages where everybody's focused on just how do we put more and more prepared teachers into the front of that pipeline. Well, the fact is there's this revolving door of educators that if you look at the most recent stats, 40 to 50% of first-year teachers are no longer in the profession by year 5. So if we're going to actually solve the teacher shortage, it's not about putting more and more into the front end, into that revolving door. It's really focusing on how we retain teachers in the classroom for their career for that long term. And that's what we're going to focus on today, is I'm going to shift us away from sort of those statistics that can bring the joy down, but like, what are some ways in which we can really focus on pouring love and energy into teachers and leaders in our schools? So that's the focus for today as we move into this presentation. So Mamie, we're going to start with you. In your experience, what are some of the key challenges that educators are facing right now when it comes to their well-being and their professional capacity?
Yeah, so when we think about our educators, they are individuals who have their own issues, right? They are parents, caregivers, military spouses. They're concerned about economics. They're concerned about their overall emotional, mental well-being. And so it is important that when we're talking about our educators, that we're not just seeing them within the profession, but that we're seeing that they're individuals. And so how can we best support this individual to go into a classroom to support a community in the best way possible? And so when we think about our colleges, it's important that we're not just helping educators learn content. We also need to help our educators learn how to put well-being a part of their professional development. How are they caring for themselves? What does that look like for this season? You know, when you have a young child and a teacher, that looks very different than when you have kids who are about to leave the house. And then we have teachers that also are dealing with, living with, also disabilities. And so recognizing that the teachers who are showing up into our classrooms are coming with such rich lived experiences, and how are we preparing them for that? And so one of the things that we've done with our reimagination in the School of Ed is that we've put that into our actual curriculum. So in addition to our teachers learning how to do lesson planning, but they're also looking at, what does joy look like in my classroom? How do I identify when I'm starting to experience fatigue? What does stress management look like for me? So that you're not only going into the profession that you love. Like, people who are experiencing leaving the profession is not because they don't like teaching anymore. Mm-hmm. It's because, how do I do teaching along with all the other things? And so colleges have a unique opportunity for us to be able to say, we're going to approach this from a holistic approach, which is what we do with Healthy Learning. It is really about providing holistic care to our students to be able to go into the classrooms as healthy individuals. So
I love that. I love that. Just a real quick moment. The timer's not working up here, so the person that's supporting this room, if we don't have a timer, we'll just keep chatting all afternoon, and it'll drive everybody crazy. So, or if I could get any sort of timer so I know how to facilitate this. Okay. Or maybe I can grab. Okay. There it is. Excellent. Now it's working. Thank you. I know all of us, and we would chat all.
That's right.
Yes, we
will.
So, Mamie, I think that it's really interesting, that perspective, because one thing, again, sort of through that lens of educator preparation programs, and when we've been thinking about the future of what ed prep looks like, and the future of sort of how do we prepare teachers to be successful, sort of that joining together not only of the pedagogical and methods and those approaches, but partnering that with that well-being is so important. So I like the way that you addressed that to begin with.
Yes.
So Troy, from your viewpoint, how can school leaders foster a culture that truly supports the mental and emotional well-being of their teachers? We'll shift over.
Yeah, that's a great
leaders.
question. So for context, I serve a school that is predominantly students with disabilities, as well as students of color. And we are 6 through 12 community, and so those of you who are used to K-5, yes, middle school can be challenging, but it can also be extremely rewarding because we are at the point in the student's trajectory where we are preparing to send them to colleges and universities, and we have to take advantage of that opportunity. And I think that is oftentimes the challenge that some of the teachers wrestle with. We're wrestling with this idea of making sure that our students are capable of handling the demands of higher ed, and we take that home with us. And as a school leader, I'm often challenging my teachers to embrace this fact, but also to see themselves as individuals and humans. I think there are so many constraints and requirements that are given to us as school leaders to ensure that our state scores rise and the improvement plan is implemented with fidelity. But we forget that we're not just working with robots. And there is a need for us to see the individuals within our learning spaces as individuals coming in with their own challenges and concerns. I was a school leader who began my leadership journey after having 3 miscarriages. It was a challenge.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a lot of support, but I've had teachers who have come into my office and have said, Mr. Wilson, this is what's happening. And my first response wasn't, well, did you submit your lesson plan? Or are you preparing to be out? What is your next step? No, there was real care and concern for the educators that were sitting in front of me, dealing with real life. We say that about our students, that they are experiencing real life. Our educators are too. So we have to see them for who they are and to acknowledge that and to support them throughout that journey. So I think that is one of the key points that as school leaders, we can't just think that we are leading a school of robots. They are humans and they deserve the respect and the honor to be the best that they can be.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that anybody'd like to add to that before we join? Because we're going to go to year-round community there, Milton.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, being able to recognize with empathy,
That's
right? To recognize how are we showing up for people in an empathetic, caring way? Are we seeing, hearing, and valuing the individuals that we're interacting with? And small ways, such as, how can I help you today?
That's right.
That's such a powerful conversation. And when people can trust you, to know that when I say, hey, I need this today, they know that you're going to listen.
Yep.
They know that you're going to respond and that you're going to seek a solution. And so it is important when we're talking about well-being that we're helping our educators learn how to advocate for themselves. What does that look like to be able to advocate with your leader, to be able to advocate for in your community, and advocate in your home? Because you are still a person in which, hey, if you want to go into leadership, we were just having this conversation, leadership will look different. It impacts your home in a different way. I started as a high school English teacher, and my husband was deployed, and so what that season looked like and the amount of work I was able to do looked vastly different when I had no idea where he was and where's going on and you know, all those different things. And that was before we had all the nice technology, so I was waiting for letters. But knowing how to go and say, hey, today's a really rough day. I have not heard from him in weeks. And so, you know, being able to advocate for myself as an educator, but to also know I'm talking to a leader who values me as an individual, who's demonstrating empathy, care, that the dignity that's worth for all individuals. And so I think being able to have these discussions of, well, what is well-being? Because well-being doesn't mean the same thing to everybody.
Right.
And so it's important that we do have shared language within our schools on this is what wellness is, this is what well-being is, what resources are available, so that you know how you're able to show up in your schools and for your students and for yourself.
Yeah. What about community?
And I think like what Troy said, like sometimes we forget like people are human, right? Like there's a human side. And I think sometimes as educators, we forget about that human side, the connection, the relationship that you build with staff where they trust you. And just a simple hello, good morning goes a long way, right? Because we as principal, we're busy all the time. But man, I respect the fact that there's that personal connection. And I make sure I have that personal connection with everybody in my building. I'm talking teachers, cooks, custodians. Do you guys realize how important the cooks are? They bake pies and banana nut bread for you. They're crucial. Custodians, paraprofessionals, that human connection with them goes a long way. And I know we talk a lot about test scores and, you know, we got to get out of this rut and that rut. No, let's build relationships where everybody trusts each other. And I know it starts with me.
That's right.
It starts with the leader. And I know I set the tone every day. And I think I'm about to go into the question that you're going to ask me, right?
That's perfect.
How do you build that community, right? So I've been blessed to be in this profession for 38 years and 29 as a principal.
Yes.
Thank you for the applause, man. It's been some rough years, but hey, I'm still standing, right?
That's right.
And I'm standing because I always go back to my why, right? And the love of what I do and the impact that I want to make, right? And so at my school, me building that community is important. Like every day, I connect with every one of my teachers every day. Now people ask, like, how do you do that? It's a priority. It means something to me, right? I can do paperwork later. I can do anything else later, but it's important that I connect with my teachers when they punch in that clock at 8:20. That's when I start going around to each classroom to say good morning to each teacher. And I got a different relationship with each teacher. There's some teachers that's just, good morning, how you doing? You ready for the day? There's some teachers, oh, Mr. Collins, let me talk to you. My dog died and I'm just having a rough day and you can cry on my shoulder. And we keep it moving, right? And like I said, stop and talk to the cooks too. Like, hey, what we eating today? What you gonna make me today? And then the custodians, man, I just have a great relationship with those guys. You're not just a custodian, you part of this community.
That's right.
You make everybody feel part of your community in your school, no matter what the role is, right? And so when I do that at 8:20, 8:40, the kids come in. So I do it all over again. Okay, there's my kid. Let me go say good morning to all of my kids and look at them in the eyes, because the eyes will tell you everything, right? Like if a kid is something wrong with the eyes, I pull them to the side. Hey, what's going on? And they'll tell you. Do you know that they'll tell you that mom and dad fought last night? Right. Do you know they'll tell you that, Mr. Collins, I didn't even eat no food last night? Mr. Collins, I'm so tired. And listen, I know that I can't control anything away from school, but I mean, when they come to me for those 7.5 hours, you're gonna be safe, you're gonna be cared for, you're gonna be loved, and you're gonna eat.
Yeah.
If a kid miss a meal, I walk them to the cafeteria. This kid missed, you put the food away. No, you gotta get them something. It's important to do that, and you build that relationship with folks where they trust you.
That's right.
And because your school climate will control everything. School climate will control your test scores. And people don't realize that once you establish that relationship and everybody's on the same page, and know that we're creating this environment of safety, love. When kids wake up in the morning, they're ready to come to school, right? Because I do the same. When I wake up in the morning, I'm ready to go to school. I'm ready to make a positive impact today. I'm going to impact somebody's life. Kid, staff member, custodian, cook, because you know that they have problems too.
Yeah.
And they trust me because they see me every day. They trust me to talk to me about those problems.
That's right.
And so if you want to build that community as a leader, visibility is the key. Yeah. Man, God rest my mom's soul. Passed away a couple of years ago. She used to tell me all the time. She's like, son, work your charm. Work your charm to your advantage. Let people know, because it's genuine. I know it's genuine with you. And when you're consistent with it and you do it every day, you're going to see positive results. And I'll say this about my positive results. When I got to Lincoln in 2017, schools in turnaround status. 32.2% accountability score, which was the bottom 25% of the worst schools in the state academically. Fast forward 5 years later, right? 52.9. And people's like, how did you do it? Listen, I'm not a micromanager. I let my teachers teach. I tell my teachers all the time, I need you at your absolute best when I'm not watching.
That's right.
Yep.
Did you hear that? I need you at your absolute best when I'm not watching. Because it's easy when I come in and do an observation or evaluation. We all know about the dog and pony show. I've been doing this long enough. I know a dog and pony show because I've been in your classroom enough to know, right? And so it's establishing those relationships as well, where people understand, they get to know who you are and what you're all about. And then you start seeing those results. It's just steady every day. Teachers know that they're going to see me. They get a little upset on Wednesdays because I have principals meeting and I'm gone for half the day. I hate principals meetings, y'all. Because I love being at my school so much.
Yeah.
And the kids know it. Some days when I walk on campus, I feel like the Pied Piper. Like K-5, I'm sorry, Troy, but K-5, I was a high school principal like Troy. I'm divorced as a result of being a high school principal. Get home every night, 10 o'clock, late, wife mad, kids sleep. You know, she's like, what about your kid? I was like, I know my kids love me. What about them high school? They need me. They need me at their swim meet. They need me at the track meet. They need me watching them play golf. All the major sports. I just couldn't cut it loose. And then I found elementary. Oh, I fell in love. I'm going to say this and I'm going to stop. My school ends at 3:20. Every day I leave at 4 o'clock. Every day. Every day.
Yes, that's good.
And I try to encourage my teachers, man, listen, cut it off. You got to leave. Yep. They have a self-care goal. And not like I work out all the time, but I don't encourage them to work out. I ask them to put a self-care goal into their goals for the year. And that self-care goal could be, I'm gonna walk for 30 minutes, I'm gonna have some quiet time. The one that I try to encourage the most for them, for their self-care goal, leave at contract time. Don't be staying around running off papers and doing this for tomorrow. That work gonna be there tomorrow. Your family might not be there.
It's true.
They might pack up and leave. Get out of here and go home, right?
Yeah.
So I think this is some well-being plans for you.
Absolutely.
We don't want you to end up in the same situation.
No, you don't want that.
So what would be advice that you would give to a principal or a school leader, based on your experience in how to take care of themselves or how to provide those supports? Start with you, Milton.
That's the first thing. Like, cut it off. Like, the work is gonna be there tomorrow, right? Like, every time I mentor a future assistant principal or principal, the first thing I ask them, are you married? Do you have kids? Don't be married to this job.
That's right.
Do all you can in those 8 hours and go home. Your kids are waiting on you, wife cooking. Go home. I'm telling you, that's the best advice that I can give, because like I said, I tell people all the time, I don't want you to end up like me, man. I had a beautiful family, 2 beautiful kids, beautiful wife, who's an educator as well, as a principal as well. But man, I couldn't cut it loose. And I advise you to cut it loose. Go home. Yeah. Go home to your families, because that work is going to be there waiting on you on your desk tomorrow.
Yes.
Good advice for anybody. What about you, Troy? I mean, in terms of advice you'd give to other school leaders to stay healthy, because you have to stay healthy for your teachers to stay healthy and to model that so the kids get the downstream consequence of that. So.
It's important. I think establishing leadership pipelines, I don't think that a school should solely depend on the principal. I'm here at this conference, and my school is back in New York City. And there are leaders in place who are ensuring that the day-to-day continues on. And so I have PTO days, I have vacation days, and I intend to take them, right? That's in addition to the days we're already closed, because schools are always on vacation sometimes in New York City. But to that point, ensuring that I am developing the capacity of leaders within my school community so that they can continue on with the work. I'm privileged that our school does give me a work cell phone, so I have taken off my work email from my personal cell phone because I used to get the Monday scaries on Sunday evenings whenever my phone would just go off, and now my grandmother can call and I'm not concerned about whether it being the school or not, but it's just my grandmother on a Sunday. And I think setting those clear boundaries and saying, yes, the work will meet me on Monday morning, it will see me on Friday afternoon. Sometimes I do stay later on days when everyone else is leaving the building so that I can get work done. I think prioritizing systems to ensure that you can take care of work at work and you can take care of family and yourself. I also gained more weight in my first year of principalship than I ever had. Freshman 15 had nothing on principalship. 15. And it's real because I was running from classroom to classroom to meeting, and there were times where I would be eating my first meal at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was just running on coffee and the snacks that were in the cafeteria, right? And that's not the best way to take care of ourselves, to be sustained in the work, and I think those practices do lead to burnout. When we aren't getting enough sleep because we're concerned about what's happening tomorrow and we're doing all of the late night paperwork, as opposed to establishing systems during the school day to ensure that I can do the work. And that's easier said than done. There are some days when you can get it all done within the school day, but then there's some days where you do have to prioritize delegation. And if you don't feel as though you can delegate the work then that means there's a disconnect in your capacity building. because that means you haven't developed others to be able to help support the work that you are doing. I shouldn't sit in every professional learning committee because I've developed other leaders that can do the work and can ensure that we're aligned on the instructional practices that we are doing within the school to increase student outcomes. That's important, building that pipeline.
Yeah. Mamie, how do you see educator well-being differing for what support you might need for, say, a first-year teacher versus a third, fourth, or fifth-year teacher?
Yeah, so everything you all talked about, those are skills, right? You're talking skills. Skills that not all of our teachers or our individuals come into teaching with. And so it is important that we're talking about what are the skills that you need in order to prioritize well-being. So we can say time management, but do you know what time management looks like here? What are the different types of time management? And so there's a lot of assumptions we make regarding people having degrees and people being professionals. We assume that we have all these skills to know how to do all this stuff.
It's an assumption.
It is. It's a big assumption. And so it's important that we're, for our first year teachers, identifying what does a healthy year look like?
Yes.
Not a successful one, not, where we're looking at numbers or anything, but when we talk to our teachers and we say, when you close your eyes and you think about you at the end of this year, who are you becoming? And then what are the skills that you need to help you get there?
Yeah.
And so we know our first year teachers, they're just trying to survive. I mean, I had all kind of stuff, and I came into teaching with a lot of skills. I was a great organizer, so I had a binder for everything. And so, but knowing how to balance, oh my gosh, I love this,
Yes.
but I need to go home. Knowing what do you say no to, what can you say no to? So having conversations, and this is where mentorship, coaching really comes in, and why we need veteran teachers. We need people staying in the profession to help those coming into the profession. And then those 3 to 5, those are the ones who are really looking at, do I really want to do this? Mm-hmm. And so how do we have conversations? What support do they need to be able to say, well, what does a healthy profession look like for you? What type of lifestyle do you want to have? And again, what is the knowledge and skills that you need to help get you there? Do we need to help find a way to get you back to school? Do we need to find ways to help you identify ways for you to get support for your child who has a disability and you're like, I don't know where to go? So it's having conversations with leaders. It's also how do our teachers build community, because we need communal care. I know we talk a whole lot about self-care, but an important part of self-care is your community. Mm-hmm. And so I grew up understanding that you thrive in spaces where you have communal care. Something went on, my grandmama and all them, we didn't have meal trains where you were signing up. They just knew somebody called somebody, and next thing you know, somebody was dropping off a meal. Somebody was picking up your kid, because that community allowed you the space to be able to thrive. And so it's what does that look like for our teachers? How can they use community resources to help them? What are the resources that are available? What partnerships can we make in our community so that our teachers have the opportunities to go and observe phenomenal educators? I thought that I was a good teacher, and then I went to go observe somebody. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this person is amazing. And they were doing and teaching, I was a high school English teacher. And the way that they were teaching the content, I was like, oh, I never thought about that. So teachers also need time to go and sit and observe other amazing educators for them to learn, to be able to have conversation. So things like South by Southwest, you come in and that's what you're doing. You're learning, you're listening, you're having conversations, but this has to go on beyond this space.
Right.
And so we need to, how do we carve that out in spaces? And I know some schools have the professional days on like our district does Wednesdays, but those days are often already packed with stuff.
Absolutely.
And so we need to stop that. It needs to be an opportunity for teachers to be able to identify what type of professional care do they need. So when we're talking self-care, then there's communal care, but there's your professional care. What is necessary for you to fine-tune who you want to be in this profession, so that you can still love it. Mm-hmm. Like it's 25, August will be 25 years for me in teaching, and I love it more than I did the first day, and I didn't even know I was going to love it like that. But it is because I'm intentional in creating spaces that are going to fill my cup. I'm intentional, and one of my favorite questions is, tell me more. And so I want to be around people where I can ask them, tell me more about how you're doing this. Tell me more about what this looks like, because I recognize it is a skill. I have a knowledge gap. I need to figure out how to hone that skill. And so it's all three of those things: self-care, communal care, professional care.
Love it.
And Stacey, just quickly, because I forgot something. How many teachers? Do we have any teachers in the building today? A lot of teachers.
Okay, woo!
Okay.
All right.
Okay, teachers. So I want to piggyback a little bit off self-care. Self-care is important because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of kids.
That's right.
If I don't take care of myself as a principal, I can't take care of my teachers. And so have you ever heard of this book? If you don't feed the teachers, they eat the kids. You ever heard of that book? It's a great book. Now, I know you're thinking, feeding the teachers, you're thinking, yeah, Mr. Collins is going to buy us Cafe Rio today or Panda Express. No. This is how I feed them, with that everyday classroom visit, right? Valuing them as leaders and listening to them, because listening is a key communication skill that people sometimes forget. So sometimes all you got to do is just listen. And I go listen, right? But you got to take care of yourself. I often tell my teachers, you remember how when school first started, the first couple of weeks, they call it the honeymoon period, right? They call it, the honeymoon. Everybody's good and nothing going on, right? The honeymoon period can last all year long. It can last all year long if you got your policies and procedures in place and kids know that you're consistent with those procedures. You won't be running out at Christmas break. You won't be running out at spring break. You won't be saying, hallelujah, it's summertime. You will have that energy that you can take to your family, to your kids, to your husband, grandparents. Take care of yourself, teachers, in order to take care of others. Because I don't want you eating the kids.
So I love that. I love just the title. Were you going to say
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. I think, especially for those who are preparing to transition into leadership, or you're in a leadership position now, I think sometimes as leaders we forget the transferable skills that we developed as teachers to care for every student in our classroom. We used to have cell check-ins, like you would check social-emotionally. Before you would start a lesson, you would check to make sure that the students in your room were okay. And I think that's what we're emphasizing, that as leaders, you also have to do for the teachers in your community. Because if we don't, then we lose out on an opportunity for learning, because there are, believe it or not, there are teachers who are looking at you, and you're the model for whether they're going to consider leadership. And we do need more effective school leaders out there. And how we handle ourselves, we are possibly telling them that this is a terrible job that they should probably never go into. And so hopefully we can start shifting the narrative by prioritizing our wellness as leaders, and encouraging teachers to prioritize their wellness as well. And that means we have to keep the lessons that we've learned as teachers. I still teach first period seniors.
You
First
chose
period.
that.
It's my choice at 8 a.m. every single day. And it's a wonderful experience, but it reminds me of how to connect with students, which I then need to transfer to connecting with the staff that we care for.
So one group of people that's so important to this community that we haven't chatted about is parents, right?
Yeah.
So we've got the leaders. I always think of it like a triangle, but it's really like leaders and the teachers and the students. Like, what would be the message you'd give to parents? Like, if you could say, hey, here's something that you could do to feed some love into this partnership, this really important collaborative partnership that's all about raising these really great kids. Like, what would you say to parents? As I'm like shoving pulling up to like, because I've got to get to work, pull up to the sidewalk, shove the kid out, take off. What would you ask of parents?
I tell parents every day when they drop their kids off, go have your coffee. Trust me, I got you, baby. I love them. You don't have to worry about nothing, because safety is, as a parent, you worry about the safety of your child all the time. And there's so many things going on in schools, right? You got your school shootings, and there's so much with, right now we're dealing with the whole immigration thing. I got parents calling me saying they're scared to send their kids to school because ICE might come to the school and get them. And you know what I tell them? It's like, I would go to jail. Because if ICE come to my school, they're gonna meet me at the door. And if I gotta, get arrested, I will get arrested for kids. I will get arrested for my family. Like, you're not gonna, the population of students that I work with, they're already traumatized.
Yeah.
We don't need no more trauma in these kids' lives. They need love, right?
That's right.
And so another interesting thing about my school is we got 24 different languages, right? Amazing. I only speak one. Un poquito español, though. Very little Spanish, right? But people ask, like, how do you communicate with your parents and they don't speak the language? Listen, sometimes I have the kids translating for me, but I'm gonna tell you this, one thing that's universal is a smile when they walk up. I can't speak your language, but this is excitement to see you, right? And as a leader, that's all parents look for. Like, are you welcoming? My kids safe? And I make them feel that they're safe every day because I'm visible. I'm outside. Every day in the morning when they come in, and every day at dismissal, I'm outside. So parents see me. They know, like, I'm like an eagle lurking. No danger, because if there's danger, I'm gonna confront it.
That's
and
right.
So just making them feel like their kids are safe when they're with me.
Yeah. Want to add to that, Mamie?
Yeah, I think boundaries is important. So when we're communicating with parents, I recognize that parents are usually sending their email and communication once they get home from work. And so it's recognizing that our educators are in the same boat. They are now home from work. And so while you want that immediate communication, it's recognizing that you're sending the communication, and our teachers will respond in a timely and appropriate manner. But we want to also recognize that our teachers should be able to be at home and with whatever their home life looks like, right? Whether they're going home to their dog, and they're like, hey, this is what my life looks like and I'm good. Whether they're going home, to 5 kids, whatever going home looks like, they should be able to go home, not check email, not do anything, to be present in their homes, to be present in their communities. And so it's important that we humanize teachers for our parents, to be able to recognize these are individuals just like you who are getting out from work just like you. And so I think that's also where leadership comes in, and setting those expectations and boundaries with our parents, that they are an amazing collaborators. We need our parents to collaborate with us. We need our parents, they know their kids, most cases. But I advocate for my son. I know to go into the school and say, these are your classroom rules. I would like to share something with you about my child that you may not know that can help him be successful in your class. And so I do that to be a collaborator in this space, that I honor the fact this is your classroom. You are the expert in this space, and I trust that you are the expert in this space. And so it's being able, I think the boundaries is just so important in setting that and helping parents to know that we'll get to your email within our work hours. And so setting that expectation, and to say, I need you to be a collaborator. I need you to show up, to be present, and what you're able to, because not everybody can show up in the middle of the day because they work, different circumstances, may not have a car. But what does showing up look like for what you're capable of doing, where you are? And so many of our students are caregivers. They're taking care of their parents,
That's right.
their grandparents. So recognizing that some parents are only able to show up a certain way. And again, humanizing parents, right, as well, because we can have those expectations like, oh, they didn't even show up, like, oh, they don't even care about the kids. But that parent could be bedridden, and that's why they're not showing up. People should not have to tell you what is going on in their lives for you to treat them with dignity.
That's right.
That's true.
And so that is us being able to be able to say, how can you show up? What does showing up look like for you? How can I support that? So again, I love questions. I just think that if you ask questions and you ask the right questions, people are willing because they recognize you want to learn more. You want to meet them where they are without shame, because shame does not belong in education.
No.
And so we want to meet people without shame and being able to say, we are a partner in this with you. So how do we do this? What does that look like? And so I recognize not all teachers have amazing leaders. And so as an educator, you are able to set that standard in the way you're communicating with parents to say, I love communicating with you. I want to hear from you. I'll be communicating with you through these hours on these days. So that way you set the expectation for communication. But again, these are all, again, I still go back, these are all skills. Okay, these are all skills. And so the more we look at this as what skills are needed and how do we build them, and remove the assumption that people have built these soft skills to be able to engage in this way, which is why the work that we're doing at WGU through healthy learning and healthy working environments is really focused on what are the skills necessary to have healthy spaces.
Yeah.
So that's
great.
part, yeah.
I want to hear from you in just a second, but I wanted to just mention we have about 20 minutes left. So if you have any questions, we will have a Q&A, and there's a couple microphones here in the center. So this gives you a couple minutes to sort of step up if you have questions. We'll be happy to answer those. And then I want to direct back over to you, Troy, in terms of, again, thinking about this parent aspect. They're such a key collaborator
Absolutely.
in the success of this whole endeavor. So.
So I am a parent. I have a 6-year-old and a 16-month-old. And so whenever I go to meetings, my daughter does have a disability, so I'm engaged in IEP meetings. And whenever I go to those meetings and they see me, they're like, you're a principal. And I'm like, yeah, 6 through 12, not K-5. You're the expert. You can support me in ensuring that I support my daughter. And I think in acknowledging that stance and that inquiry approach that says, hey, I don't know everything and I need support, and that's okay. I think there, to Mamie's point, at times we do make assumptions about parents and we don't always acknowledge the humanity of our parents. We look at our students and we know that they have lived experiences and they're coming from different backgrounds, but we don't often think about the parents that are helping them and navigating them, the families that are, because I was raised by my grandmother, so it wasn't my parents who raised me. So who are the people in the village supporting the children that will sit in our classrooms? And I think making sure that there are opportunities for them to connect within the confines of yes, your boundaries, but also in ways that will allow for those connections. Because I am a school leader, I can't come to the school at the same time because my school is in session while my daughter's school is in session. So I need opportunities at different times, whether it's the weekend, whether it's the evening, and I know that that can be a challenge for school leaders and for principals as well as for teachers, but making that space available is important. Acknowledging that if we want to engage families, then we sometimes have to be really creative in the ways that we do so. And that might include just sending home a newsletter once a week or once a month, just sharing what are some of the highlights. Social media is great right now. Our Class Dojo, I'm not sure if you can use all the other spaces depending upon your district, but there are ways that you can just share information with families so that they can feel connected. I believe that many families want to stay connected, but there are a lot of tasks that they have to do, demands that they have beyond what we might even know or even understand. And so there are some families that are working 2 or 3 jobs. That's a real thing. And if we allow space for them to connect in honest ways, then we could continue to see those opportunities grow for students as well. I think also I'll add, especially at the 6 through 12 lane, I think there's this underlining assumption that students no longer need parental support in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. And that is not true. If you are a parent in the room, I just want to share that. It is not true. I think even as they get closer to making really important decisions about their future, to include the colleges that they might consider going to, or the high schools that they are considering going to. They need guidance and support, and they need skills to be developed to ensure that when they are talking to a recruiter, that they're looking at some of the dollar signs associated with the degree before they just sign on the dotted line. They're engaging in conversations with families, with their family before making those hard decisions. I'm seeing a lot of my now 12th grade students, and we'll be graduating our first class of 12th grade students in June, which is really exciting. But I'm seeing a lot of them just enlisting into the Army without engaging in honest conversations with veterans or with associations that will support them, or even having plans beyond just the moment, right? Our students don't always see beyond where they are today, and I think it would be helpful if we engage families in that conversation more as school leaders, as teachers, and allowing their voices to be heard. We shouldn't minimize parental voice just because we might have more degrees than they do.
Right.
Yeah.
Or they stopped going to school in 8th grade or 7th and 10th grade. Their experiences are important, and their voices should be heard in our learning spaces and in our schools.
Yeah.
That's great. Really appreciate that. I don't see any questions yet. Doing a quick time check. I think we have 15 minutes. Oh, perfect. All right.
As you guys said, there's a lot of school leaders who aren't there where you all are on this topic. If you're encountering a school leader who is, saying you got to check your emotions at the door and we got to separate these things out, and pitting student interest against the interest of the educators, or maybe thinking constantly about the accountability pressures that they're under, and so they're not prioritizing the well-being of educators. How do you think we could support teachers at those schools where there's a leader who's really stuck in that mindset? And then what would you say to those school leaders too?
I'll take it if
All right.
that's okay. I think one of the key considerations is that in order for you to best support students, you have to be the best you. And I believe that in those conversations, it is absolutely okay to say, in order to best support the students that are in my class, I need to prioritize my wellness. And I don't believe that anyone should argue with that. If you're in a district that has a union, you can engage your union rep in that conversation. Because in order to actually do this work, you have to be able to have healthy boundaries. Because I can't work all types of times in the night and then be expected to arrive at 8 a.m. really refreshed and ready to support students in the classroom. What I would say to school leaders that are wrestling with this idea is that in order to sustain educators, because we want to see educators stay in our buildings for as long as possible, if that is their choice. Now, if they're choosing to go into administration, I support it 100%. But if they are choosing and they want to be a teacher, a lifelong teacher, then I need to create conditions that will support them in doing that. And in order to best support the students that they are directly connected with, then I must support the teachers who are standing in front of those children every single day. Because the reality is, if all of my teachers were to leave the school today, I could not teach all of those classes.
Yeah.
And we have to acknowledge that. I've been fortunate to have a 95% retention rate of teachers. The only reason that I've lost some is because they have either expanded their families and have moved away, or they've become leaders. And it's firstly acknowledging that in order for them to be the best for students, I've got to support them on the front lines.
And I want to kind of piggyback. I would also, encourage you to think about what are your practices.
Yes.
And so one of the lists that I love is do, delegate, delete. And so every day I start with that do, delegate, and delete list. And it helps me to identify what are the 3 things. Not 5, not 10, all that, like you're doing too much. But the 3 things that I specifically am responsible for doing that only I can take care of. Then I look at what can be delegated, whether that's, hey, I'm going to coordinate with my kids, my husband, and be able to say, all right, you have dinner this day, you're going to do this on that day. And then the delete is, I think I'm trying to own something that is not mine. is being able to recognize, because we care so much, it's so easy to pick up things that are not yours to carry. And so reminding myself that I need to put this down, I need to delete this, I can't change other people, there's certain things outside of my scope. And so identifying what are some practices that you're able to own. And so I can own my list, I can own my focus, I can own keeping my heart tender when life around me is hard. And that takes daily intentional practice to be able to do that. So while you may not have amazing leaders here, you do have autonomy in that way. And so it's really thinking about what do those practices look like for the season that you're currently in, and who can you partner with to be able to help you in building those skills.
And also, like I spoke earlier, like as an administrator, as a principal, we set the tone for our building. We create that culture, we set that tone, right? And I think all of you guys know it here. Do you know what the #1 reason why teachers leave schools?
Leadership.
It's us.
Anybody know the #1 reason why they leave schools?
It's not the kids.
Leadership.
Leadership. They don't have trust in the principal. They don't have trust in the leadership. And just like Troy, 95, my retention rate might be 98.
I believe it's 98.
Teachers don't want to leave. The only time they want to leave, I had a couple of teachers in the past few years to leave. Every time a teacher come to my room and say, Mr. Collins, I got to talk to you. The first thing I say, please don't tell me you're pregnant. Because they become stay-at-home moms. Every teacher that left my school is a stay-at-home mom now, right? So you create that environment where they love that school. If you at a school where that leader is, I don't know, yeah, guess what? Those teachers are going to put in for a transfer, they're going to leave, right? They're going to go somewhere where they know they're going to get support. If you want some support, if I got an opening at my school, come to Lincoln Elementary School, 450 East, 3700 Salt Lake City, Utah. I'll take good care of you because we need to retain teachers.
That's right.
Yeah.
In order to see success in schools, we have to retain teachers.
Yeah.
We can't have a revolving door where we got a different teacher in every year. Now we got to start over. We got to show you how we do it at the Bobcat Den is what I call it. I forgot to growl today. I'm so sorry. Lincoln Bobcats, right? So we own that, and staff own it too. You got to make people feel like this is your home away from home, right? And you got to feel good when it's up to me to make sure that they feel good when they walk through that door, right?
Love
And I'll just add really quickly, it is okay to find a new school community that does prioritize wellness.
Yep.
And that should be a question you ask during your interview. How do you prioritize the wellness of your teachers and ensure that they stay in the school community? That should be a question that any teacher asks. And I actually look for that in interviews because that means that you care about yourself.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, question back there.
In that regard, we put a lot of emphasis on being healthy. Oftentimes we associate it with working out. But let me go a little further. How do we encourage, embrace teachers, administrators to work in those things, those intangibles, the mental health, the psychological of it all, understanding the business side of running a school to the principal's degree, but the teachers face so much. Do you have programs, policies, or any kind of practices that encourage teachers to seek mental health counseling, or getting groups therapy either within the school or without the school?
Yeah, so I'll say even with our students in WGU, they're experiencing that while they're going through their program in our School of Education. So we are already, while they're learning pedagogy, they're also being able to learn about resources like mental health support, being able to recognize what are some of the supports within their community. So we are ensuring that this is a part of your college experience, no matter what your age is, right? And knowing that, again, people need support, they need communal care, they need the skills to be able to ensure that they know how to take care of their mental health, their emotional health, that's in there. So I think as an institution, more colleges can ensure that we're putting that into our preparatory programs, again, where you're talking holistic care. And if we have you thinking about that while you're learning how to become a teacher, then when you are in the classroom, guess what you're doing? You're using those skills already because it's something already a part of what you've learned, what you're doing, the types of questions to ask in there. So it is important that we're thinking about it from helping them become educators so that they're able to be retained, be developed in this space.
Yeah. One of the practices that we do at our school in New York City, we have Wellness Wednesdays at least once a month, and that looks like canceling all professional learning for students, for staff, so that you can make that therapy appointment that might be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, because that's the only time a therapist might be available. We have partnered with Talkspace to ensure that our teachers have free therapy because sometimes the insurance might not cover it, but we ensure that we get grants to support that wellness part of it. And that's for leaders too. So we prioritize as leaders really engaging with therapists to unpack some of those challenges. We also have developed on days where we have professional learning sessions, affinity spaces, especially for our teachers of color who might be supporting students that don't always look like them, and parents that after a traumatic experience that might be happening in the city, we ensure that we bring in clinicians to support the community because we have to recognize that families, students, and staff, we're a part of a larger community, and anything that's happening, whether it is 2 miles away or across the waters in New Jersey, can impact us here in the city. So prioritizing that is important on our end, and I employ any school leader to look into that for your staff as well.
Yeah, we as leaders, we got to recognize that with our staff, we got to pay attention, right? Oftentimes we just go about our duties and we're asking them to teach, man. It's so important for us to ask teachers, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And our district is pretty blessed to have these different type of programs, wellness programs that teachers can take advantage of. But as a leader, because a lot of times there's a lot of stuff that's going on with your teachers that you don't know about, and they won't say anything. But when you establish that relationship with them, they'll tell you everything. I mean, I got teachers that will tell me sometimes they get a little too personal, make me uncomfortable. But it's important that I listen and I hear that, because then I can support them. Because if you don't support, it leads to the burnout, it leads to people walking away, because I, as a leader, did not pay attention to that space that they needed, where they needed a safe space and they needed some help, maybe some mental help. I got to recognize that as a leader and provide that for them.
That's great. And if there are any other questions, we'll be around afterwards and we'll take those. So I have one last final question in our last 3 minutes. That is, if I'm a teacher or a leader and I'm on the bubble, I've just maxed it out and I'm ready to walk away, what's a message that you would want to send to that person right now when they're at that spot where they just don't know if they can do it anymore? Start with you, Mamie.
Yeah, I would let them know that we're linking arms. And one of the things, when you think about linking arms with someone, I'm able to hold you up. So you may feel like falling, but I can bear the weight in there to help and to get you where you need to be. And so I want to know, I want you to know I'm linked arms with you, I'm connected to you, and I'm here for you. And so I think for educators, especially I'm gonna say high school teachers, it's very easy to be in a building and be autonomous.
Yes.
Because you don't have to work the same way elementary teachers do. And so it is important to be able to have people and let someone know, like, hey, I have this going on, and that there are people who want to link arms with you, who want to hold you up and be there for you. But it does take trust. It does take tenderness of your heart. And sometimes it's a brave thing. It takes courage to say, I need help. So letting people know I'm a place you can come for help. Also knowing that I can then go to others. So I'm linking arms with you.
Yeah, and to that point, I think whenever you look at a car and it's on E, there's still a little bit more gas in that tank. There's a reserve. Don't try it, but there is a reserve. But I would say to the teacher who is on E right now, use that reserve and reach out. Because what you are doing is valuable, and we need you in the profession.
Yep.
There are a lot of technological advancements out there, but there is nothing like human connection. And our students deserve well-equipped, well-capable, passionate educators who know their why and are willing to do the hard work. So reach out, use that reserve tank, and reach out.
And just like Troy said, I tell people all the time, go back to your why. Go back to your why. When you're down and out and you're feeling it, go back to your why. How many in here are doing this for the money?
It's not.
Hope I don't see no hands.
About money once
Hope
today.
I don't see any hands.
Doubt we will.
You're not doing this for the money, right? Because this is not a get-rich scheme, right? Go back to your why. You're doing this because you want to make a powerful impact in the life of a kid. You're making a powerful impact in the life of a kid every day that you set foot on that campus. And when you can go back to that and put everything else aside and just reflect and go back to your why. Because I'm still like, I always go back and reflect on my why. When I first started, I was making $17,000 a year. I thought I was rich. I thought I was making a whole lot of money. But what I didn't know is that I was getting rich and hitting the lottery every time I set foot in that classroom with a kid, knowing that I had the power and the influence to make a positive impact in the life of a kid. Go back to your why.
That's right.
That's a wrap. So thank you so much for your time today and for the care that you give and the love for the profession. And I wish every single kid in this country could have teachers and leaders like you. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you.